Welcome, everybody. This is Betsy Jordyn, and I'm super excited to have an opportunity to interview Rachelle Stone, one of my favorite Consultants Institute members, almost graduate. Rachelle, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, Betsy.
So really what I want to understand from you, because there's going to be a lot of people who are in the same boat that you were when we first met, who are trying to grow your business. So why don't we go back in time and tell me a little bit about you. What made you decide to leave your corporate job and start your own consulting business?
Sure. I've been in the hospitality meetings and conventions industry for 28 years. And I had helped several companies build and develop their corporate divisions. And then I did it for myself, building my own company, and then working for angel investors, flipping underperforming businesses in meetings and conventions in hospitality. And after 28 years, I just simply imploded. I was maxed out, way beyond my capacity. I had no personal life. I was living to work. I was not working to live. And I recognized it one day and put the brakes on. And instead of resigning, I retired at 48 years old. I walked away from the business, took a little time to figure out what I wanted to do. And people started calling me and asking for help and support. So I hung up a shingle as a consultant, not really understanding what it was.
Very interesting. So what was it that got you over the edge? Was it just simply that you felt burnt out and you're like, I can't do it anymore? Or did somebody encourage you? Like, what was the final straw that you just said, enough?
I don't think I recognized it until after, probably a couple years after I left, but it's really that high achievers and high performers are often leaned on and given more because they take it on.
Mm-hmm.
And I continue to say yes without setting firm boundaries that allowed me to have balance in my life. And I didn't see it because my whole world was my job.
Right.
It was my career. I was meetings and conventions and special events.
You bring up such an interesting point about the challenge that high achievers experience. Mm-hmm. Is that we don't know really when to say no and when to have the boundaries. Do you feel like as you were going about growing your business, do you feel like you're bringing some of that into how you're approaching your business?
Absolutely. I think you have to have a clear understanding on the front end on what your values are. Have extreme clarity on your values and what are hard stops for you. If you don't have that, those boundaries are going to be crossed.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your process of growing your business. So I met you, what was it, over a year ago at a coaching event, and there was some challenges that you were having with growing your business. Can you tell me a little bit more about what were your struggles? What was making it difficult for you to get traction?
Yeah, I guess I had always assumed, because I was so very well connected in the industry, that the phone was ringing off the hook as I left the industry for business, and it was starting to dry up a bit. It was 3 years later. And I had put together a website because I felt like I had to have one, but I considered it an online calling card. And I knew it wasn't formatted correctly. I had no sales funnel. I had no call to action. And I really wasn't sure how to go about growing my business and letting people know I was out here and I could support them in the industry. So when I saw you speak, there were a few things that you had said that had resonated with me. And I'm very much the kind of person that I want to do business with people that I am drawn to. So after your engagement there, I made it a point to approach you and get your card and give you mine and say, I want to talk further, because I wanted to talk to you outside of that forum and pick your brain. And I wound up becoming a student.
So what was it in the presentation that struck you that you realized, like, hey, you know what, I missed some steps, or there were some opportunities that I had for my business?
I think for me, I left there that day with well over 10 pages of notes. I couldn't write fast enough to keep on top of what you were sharing, because it was so relevant and it made so much sense. And the way you had it laid out, it wasn't just the what needed to be done, it's the why it needed to be done. And that was very powerful to me.
So that's really cool. I really like that, because I was definitely drawn to you because you were one of the more engaged people in the presentation. What's interesting though, as we started to get to know one another, is we met at a meeting event for coaches. And so when we met, you were talking more about coaching. And then I remember in that meeting is really being struck with like, but you've got all this experience. It's almost like the way I experienced it as, I'm so burnt out. I don't want to go back to meetings, and I'm just going to go be a coach. And it's almost like I just want to make this simpler. And then I just felt like, wow, there's just like all this value that's being left on the table.
Yeah.
And I remember us having that conversation, and that's what struck out to me. Did that strike you at all?
It did. And I remember we had a video conference call after that initial meeting where we talked, and I was adamant. I just want to be a coach. And you're right, I was leaving 28 years worth of experience and knowledge on the floor, basically. And when we had our one-on-one call, you had gone ahead and looked at my website, and you read my story, and you had said to me, Rachelle, you have it upside down. You are a consultant that also coaches. You are not a coach that also offers consulting. And it took me probably 2 days, because after we talked, I needed to chew on what you said, but I'm very open-minded, and I'm willing to change my belief systems if it makes sense. And what you said made sense. And it took me about 2 days to come back to you and say, you're absolutely right. And I wanted to be a student and learn, how do I shift the direction I was going and still share all my knowledge with others.
That's so funny, because I think that we've had that experience multiple times in our interaction.
Yeah.
So let's talk for a minute about the branding process. So first off, let me share my screen so others can see what your website looked like in the beginning. So this is what she's referencing. And there was the vertical challenge was like right up at the top, and it was leading with coaching, and then moving down into the definition of coaching, project management. And I was like, oh, there you are, somewhere down there. Yeah. So I think that was where some of the opportunities, I believe, when we were talking, is how to bring you a whole lot more to the forefront.
Right. So
now let's talk about your brand building process, because that was another whole interesting experience. So what was your big ahas? What worked for you? What was a challenge for you when we were trying to identify, and when we were going through the planning phase and really figuring out who is your ideal client and your expertise?
Right. Well, I think the hardest part for me was moving backwards, because I had done so much. I was so used to being in charge, to then become a student again and take direction. It did take me a little bit to get used to that, but I kept saying to myself, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And when I got into your program and I started watching some of the webinars and doing some of the exercises, I recognized how little I knew on the consulting side, that I had the information, I had the knowledge and experience, but I didn't have the consulting formula,
right,
that to make it all work. And I was adamant with you that website's just a business card, an electronic business card. And now I understand this is a really powerful tool. And I did the initial website myself. It was painful, tedious, time consuming, and I just basically threw my hands up and said, fine, it's good enough, and threw it up, but it's not the best representation of me. And the more I got into this, the more I recognized I really do need to invest in that website, because that's a powerful tool to grow my business.
So I want to validate a couple of things though, because some of the things that you were saying is like, you were saying, this is kind of me. I would say that that's pretty consistent. So a lot of people start their business and they hit a point to say, they get a lot of referrals right away. People get excited, and then it starts trickling off. And then you start to realize like, oh, I have to really invest more in the whole system. And then a lot of people start off with just some sort of like what I would call like a brochure website, and then realize that they need to transition. And then the third thing that you said that makes perfect sense is the challenge with having that beginner's mind. I mean, let's be honest, we're consultants. We're the ones who everybody else goes to.
That's
We're the
right.
ones knowing all the answers. So it's a really uncomfortable place for us to be in, to say, oh my gosh, what I tell people now is that you're actually in two transitions. You're moving from employee to business owner, and you're going from leader to a consultant. You've got two transitions going on simultaneously, but we're wired to be the ones with all the answers. So I just want to just take a moment and just validate, like, that's just really part of our strengths kind of in the shadow a bit, that makes it just a little bit more challenging for us.
Yep.
So
Absolutely right.
one of the things I thought was interesting is when we were going through your brand building process is really going back to who your audience was. And it was like, you were kind of going over here and you went back to meeting event planners and really understanding that this is your sweet spot. And you actually wanted to help the very people who are very much like you. How did you get to that understanding compared to where you were just looking at leaders in general, but really looking at the industry that you came out of?
It is such a year after year, meeting and event planning, or event planner, to simplify the title, is on the list, Forbes list, of one of the top 5 most stressful jobs you can be in. It's right up there with air traffic controller and police officer. So the consistency of that and the number of people I know in the industry and my connections, a lot of them, I've watched them leave the industry because they were just fried, burnt out. And it became a joke. Another one bites the dust. And it doesn't have to be that way. There's no reason for something. And for me, I'm so incredibly passionate about meetings and conventions and special events that I never thought, I mean, it was my world, that I would ever burn out on it. It doesn't have to be that way. But
that's awesome.
No one tells them it doesn't have to be that way.
What's interesting is and that goes to the website. So I'm going to do the big reveal, because you do have a really cool website that is on the cusp of being launched. And there's a big thing that came out through the website writing process, which is the whole idea about burnout. So we didn't really land on that piece of the burnout being a big part of the value proposition. What was it? Can you recall the moment where you figured out, like, that helping people get to the top without burning out was your brand and your value proposition?
I actually think it was you that saw it, because whenever we did an exercise, and I do consider your program a lot like school, and I love school, I'll admit it, that anytime there was an exercise and we would review it, it was a recurring theme. And you were actually the one that said, Rachelle, and you pinpointed them, and it was like that light bulb moment. It was probably, I'm going to say, a good 4 months into the program, because we had started digging into, we'd already gone through, I went through several attempts at defining my ideal client. And when I let it go and allowed myself to write freely without thought, it was the meeting planner, it was the event planner, it was the transportation company owner, it was the food tour company trying to launch and break into the market, it was anybody working within that industry. I knew them like that, and it just flowed out of me.
Yeah, I love that, though. And I think what's so powerful is that, if you look at a hero's journey, like the big template that undergirds all of our favorite movies. You got like Simba from The Lion King, or Dorothy, or anybody. You have these people, they leave the known world, go into this unknown world, but get some sort of like special elixir and bring it back to the original place where they started. And what I see this is your hero's journey. This gives the meaning and purpose for your burnout, is that you learn some things in this in-between time that you're able to bring back to these organizations. So it's almost like it's redeeming all of your challenges in a whole new way. So I think that is really cool.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the visual branding process, because if you look at this website, it's very different than the one that you started. And working with somebody else versus doing it on your own. What made you decide that you didn't want to DIY it anymore and you wanted to work with us as your strategic partners?
When I created the original website, based on the amount of time it took me and how much it was not in my wheelhouse to do, um, I recognized that I needed to redesign the website. It needed more functionality to it with better access to me. Um, and it needed just the tools it needed to in order to draw in the reader or the person looking for support within the industry or for burnout. It wasn't going to cut it, and there was no way I could possibly do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I trusted you.
So looking at the colors here, so you got all the blues, you know, and all of this, I mean, it really does speak very much visually to going on top, but it's got the mellow, chill colors. That is not like, you don't have like a lot of the reds.
Right.
You have
No
pinks,
power colors.
no power colors, but you have you being very, very professional, very relatable, still about achievement, but it matches your brand. How do you feel about this website?
I love the new look. I love the colors. I did want serene. I wanted less is more, yet highly impactful.
Is there a part of your website that you're most excited about?
That I'm incorporating my personality.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about, for instance, rescue.
Guys over here. You know, one of the other things, so you've moved from Vertical Challenge to our Stone Consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about the Stone piece comparison to Vertical Challenge, because there was something in the story of Vertical Challenge that you still wanted to have.
Right.
But as we talked about, it is really important to have your name and your brand. So what was it that you were able to maintain the essence of what you wanted with Vertical Challenge, but reposition it and elevate it with our stone and this whole imagery of the stones, as you could see, is a major part of what you have here.
Right. Well, and again, just to kind of rewind, going back 4 years when I started this journey, Vertical Challenge to me is dual meaning. First and foremost, to my clients, it's all about an upward climb. It's always, Vertical Challenge is about moving up. Where others can look at a vertical challenge as a negative connotation or a block, a roadblock, I looked at it as an opportunity. And the second play on words being vertical challenge, I'm under 5 feet. It doesn't get any more vertically challenged than this. I can remember fighting you tooth and nail. I didn't want to give up the vertical challenge. But the reality is, in the business world, nobody's going to be looking for vertical challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going to be looking for Rachelle Stone. And I needed to be able to put myself out there. And there was the hesitation for me was, we all have those, I call it negative record keeping, that little voice in your head or on the shoulder that says to you, you're not good enough. Oh, you can't say you do that.
Yeah.
But I can, because I do. And I did.
So that is really cool. Like, I love so many things that you just said here, is that you definitely had an attachment from conceptually what Vertical Challenge was all about, coming to a recognition that maybe there was a little bit of hiding behind the fictitious name and you needed to come forward. Right. But what is so interesting to me is the idea of the vertical still is here in the stone. So can you explain the stone element of your website?
Well, it's actually a diamond, because out of coal, with the pressure of the earth becomes a diamond. And that to me was the upper echelon. It's the creme de la creme. It's the platinum, it's the platinum diamond ring. And I wanted to keep that imagery throughout the website because it represents stone, my last name, the power and the pressure, and coming out a diamond.
That is beautiful. So the essence of Vertical Challenge did not really go away, but it got repositioned. And actually the irony is the beauty of your brand was actually inherent in your name. And the diamond metaphor is even stronger than the Vertical Challenge, because you were just telling the high achievers is you can get to the top without burning out, but they are burning out. So just telling high achievers to go more and be challenged wouldn't have worked out, considering what you just said is high achievers keep going on and on and on and they don't know.
That's very true.
But you're saying in this one, from a metaphor standpoint, is all that pressure that you're experiencing that's making you feel like you want to implode is actually refining you into this beautiful diamond.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I just want to take a moment and put both of these websites side by side. And I want to just ask you to share, like, when you look at both these now, how you feel about your business now compared to what you might have felt before? So when you look at Vertical Challenge and you look at our Stone and all of this that's here, how does it transform you? You're on the cusp now. You're ready to launch. So the beauty is you're just like everybody else who's at this phase of the program, is that they're on the cusp of launch. But how does having this world-class website make you feel? And what does it do for you when you are looking towards getting ready to launch this out in the world compared to the Vertical Challenge one?
It's so interesting to see the two of them side by side, because the color palette is, interestingly enough, they complement. So it's still me and my personality. And I can see Vertical Challenging is an infant, still in diapers, can't do anything for itself. Whereas I look at the new website and it's so powerful and clean and strong. I feel like it's a rebirth and grown up. I feel like, they say in a person's life, you go through several phases, like 3 to 5 phases. I feel like this is my third and final phase.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited. I can't wait to start sharing it.
I mean, even when I look at the headline here, Vertical Challenge LLC, like who needs LLC? Yeah. Coaching, I'm not trying to criticize or anything, but coaching, consulting, and training for optimum personal professional performance. Right. And then there's all these words down here is really different.
Very loosey-goosey.
Being good, because being good is no longer good enough. I guide executives in hospitality and related industries through the strategic and profitable steps they need to take to break through plateaus and glass ceilings, accelerate their growth, dominate in their niche, and reach all of their goals. And I think that all of their goals is a really important part, is that you want them to still achieve, but you want them to achieve all of their goals in a balanced sort of way.
Yep.
And it's right there. So I love this because your confidence is out there, your clarity is out there, your sense of your worth is out there. For anybody right now who's in that state of, do I go all in and really just invest in my website? I know you stretched from a budget standpoint to get this website. Would you say, what's the return on investment that you feel like you've gotten from both the investment in working one-on-one with me to get the copyright? What would you say is the return? And if you had it to do it again, would you say it's absolutely worth the money?
I absolutely would do it again. If I were going backwards and got a do-over, I absolutely would make the exact same decisions. I'm a firm believer in that no one can grow without learning, and this is all a part of the learning curve. I also feel like people need to stick to what they know best. If what I know is hospitality and meetings, convention, and burnout, and that end of things, I do not know website design. And I probably should have, from day one, worked with an expert on the website design. I appreciate some people can handle it and do it, but if that's not your niche, don't pretend like it is. Hire an expert, work with them. And I feel like as far as with the consulting, and you tell this to me all the time, that I don't give myself enough credit for all I know and my experience and expertise, and own it. And you say that to me, and I say that to my coaching clients all the time. And I have to start listening to my own voice and say, yes, you own this. No regrets. I would absolutely do it again. I feel like I'm working with experts in different areas, and your resources have been just fantastic to help me in different areas when I have different challenges.
Well, I'm so glad that you're recognizing that sometimes it's hard to see, because the next order up for bids for you and I in our work together is helping draw out your content, because I know you've got a ton of intellectual property and you're just sitting on this gold mine, and that's going to be another area. But again, this is another one of those moments that I would say, this isn't you, this is all of us. I think it's really hard to see. I think there's several different points where it's really hard to see our own genius. One of it is when you're identifying your brand, because it's hard to see your passions, but it's also really hard to see your strengths. So there's a bunch of strengths that you and I haven't even really unpacked that I've just learned by spending time with you, is that some of your strategic thinking, your ability to articulate are unique strengths. So there's going to be probably additional ways that you're going to be able to monetize that, because it's highly valuable. Yep. But then the other part that's hard is when writing the website copy, and not knowing where to begin. One of the things that I appreciated about our interplay is really helping nail the structure of what the website content block should look like, so you're not working with that blank piece of paper, so that you could work through the messaging. And that is one of those second areas that we have the nose to the window pane. The next is going to be in your content. I know when we were working through your lead magnet, it was hard to get to that point to say, this is what you really can offer. And then unpacking this one, you're like, oh yeah, I have this. You didn't even recognize it. I know that in your library, there's going to be a ton of stuff. So that's going to just be another area. And I just want to validate that it's not really you, it's just all of us. You know, that even though I do this work for you, I need to have somebody else do it for me, because you're just too close to it.
You are, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was probably the biggest thing, is that I was so close to everything I did, I couldn't see what I had done.
Yeah.
So, and then I have to just give you that, the writing blocks that you provided to help create the copy was phenomenal. I never would have gotten through this process without that. It's just a great, great tool. It's amazing what you've put together.
Thank you.
It really made a difference.
So if you were going to just encourage anybody who's sort of at the cusp of wanting to really pursue their consulting business, they might not be even as far along as you are right now, maybe at the beginning stage, maybe when you were at the in-between stage. What encouragement would you say when somebody's got this vision, you know, just even from your own experience and then everything that you know as a coach to others? What would you encourage them to do about taking action on what they would want to do with their lives and what might hold them back? What little last bit of Rachelle nuggets could you offer?
I would say don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. If you're winding down in your career and you think you might want to move into consulting, hop on this program. Start drilling down now, because it can be a good 2-year process to get launched if you've never done anything like it. And you don't want to say goodbye to your current career without having something started to develop for your next career. So don't put off till tomorrow what you can get done today.
Well, and I think that that's a really good principle in general. You know, it's like you never know how much life we have. And, you know, you've been recently through different kinds of experiences that reminds us that life is short. And
that's right.
And hopefully it won't take two years to launch. I have a 4-month process. I'm hoping to get everybody through 4 months.
Like 10 days away right now.
Yeah,
really close. We're there.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your journey. And thank you for just all the encouragement that you're offering to others who are listening in. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for being a speaker at that meeting, because if I'd never met you, I wouldn't be where I am today. I'm grateful to have you in my life too.
Aw, thanks. All right. Well, see you later.
We'll see you later. Thanks, Betsy.